The freight train pulled into the Kansas City rail yard at 4:47 a.m., right on schedule. Container number TCLU 4492816 sat in the middle of the manifest, surrounded by legitimate agricultural shipments heading east. The paperwork listed corn syrup destined for a food processing facility in Ohio. The weight matched. The shipper checked out. Every box on the inspection form had been ticked correctly, but something was wrong. The regional transport company had operated freight routes across the Midwest for 17 years. Their trains moved agricultural products, industrial equipment, and consumer goods through 9 states, connecting manufacturing hubs with distribution centers along a network that spanned over 2,000 miles of track. The operation ran with mechanical precision. Shipments moved on time. Documentation flowed seamlessly through customs and agricultural inspection checkpoints. Nothing stood out. That's exactly what made it perfect. The first anomaly appeared in a routine financial audit conducted by a regional banking compliance officer. A series of wire transfers from a freight logistics company in Arizona didn't match the volume of documented shipments. The amounts were substantial, but not extraordinary. The pattern suggested consistent overpayment for transport services that should have cost significantly less based on standard industry rates. The compliance officer flagged it. The report sat in a queue for 6 weeks before anyone looked at it closely. When DEA financial analysts finally reviewed the data, they found something else. The same logistics company had received payments from 14 different agricultural exporters across 6 states. Each company appeared legitimate on paper. Each had proper licensing, tax records, and years of documented business activity. But when cross-referenced with actual agricultural production data from the Department of Agriculture, the numbers didn't align. These companies were shipping volumes that exceeded their documented production capacity by substantial margins. The investigation team pulled shipping manifests going back 4 years. The containers moved through a carefully designed network of regional rail hubs: Phoenix to Kansas City to Chicago, Chicago to Cleveland, Cleveland to Philadelphia. Each leg appeared independent. Each shipment carried different documentation. The routes never repeated in the same sequence within a single month, creating the appearance of random legitimate commerce rather than systematic trafficking. The containers themselves were unremarkable. Standard 40-foot intermodal units used by thousands of shipping companies worldwide. They moved through inspection points without triggering alerts because they carried legitimate cargo mixed with something else. The method was elegant in its simplicity. Real agricultural products filled the front third of each container: soybeans, corn syrup, dried peppers, processed grains. Behind that layer, hidden within modified pallets and false bottom crates, sat the actual payload: cocaine, pressed into bricks and vacuum sealed in layers of agricultural packaging that matched the legitimate cargo. The weight distribution was carefully calculated to avoid detection during standard inspections. The manifest weights aligned with expected cargo loads. Chemical residue was minimal because the drugs never touched the outer containers directly. Everything was designed to pass inspection without raising suspicion. The scale became clear when surveillance teams tracked a single container from Arizona to Pennsylvania over a 3-week period. The container originated at a distribution facility outside Phoenix, where it was loaded during a night shift. It moved by truck to a rail yard where it joined a freight train heading northeast. At Kansas City, the container transferred to a different train without being opened or inspected. In Chicago, it underwent a similar transfer. By the time it reached a warehouse facility in suburban Philadelphia, it had passed through 4 different jurisdictions and moved under 3 separate shipping companies' documentation. When DEA agents finally executed a search warrant on the Philadelphia facility, they found 17 containers that fit the same pattern. Each carried legitimate agricultural products. Each contained concealed compartments built into the cargo pallets. The total seizure from that single location was 12 tons of cocaine with a street value exceeding $200 million. But that was just one facility. The investigation expanded rapidly as analysts traced the network backwards through financial records and shipping manifests. The operation wasn't controlled by a single cartel. but rather functioned as a service provider for multiple trafficking organizations. The logistics coordinators operated like a legitimate freight company, charging fees based on weight and distance. Different cartels contracted for different routes. Some shipments carried Colombian cocaine. Others transported methamphetamine produced in Mexican labs. The system accommodated various clients as long as they paid the premium rates and followed the security protocols. The rail network itself was structured in cellular compartments. Loading crews at origin points didn't interact with transfer operators at intermediate hubs. Drivers who transported containers to rail yards had no knowledge of what happened after the handoff. The financial structure was equally fragmented. Payments flowed through shell companies registered in Nevada, Delaware, and Wyoming. Each transaction appeared legitimate on its own. Only when viewed as a complete network did the pattern emerge. Security was maintained through a combination of compartmentalization and corruption. At 3 different rail yards, freight inspectors had been recruited to ensure certain containers moved through without detailed examination. The payments were substantial, but not extraordinary. $5,000 to look the other way when a specific container number appeared on the manifest. The inspectors weren't told what they were protecting. They were simply paid to minimize inspection delays for priority shipments. The coordinator network operated from seemingly legitimate logistics offices in Phoenix, Dallas, and Miami. They used standard freight management software, communicated through encrypted messaging applications, and maintained the appearance of normal business operations. Employee records showed logistics managers, dispatch coordinators, and customer service representatives. Most of them had no idea they were working for a trafficking operation. They processed shipments, generated invoices, and coordinated transfers exactly as they would for any freight company. The breakthrough came when DEA agents intercepted communications between a logistics coordinator and a cartel representative in Sinaloa. The conversation revealed that a major shipment was scheduled to move through the network within 72 hours. This shipment was larger than usual, 23 tons split across 7 containers, moving from southern Arizona to distribution points in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey simultaneously. The operation required coordination across multiple federal agencies. DEA took the lead, but the investigation involved FBI financial crimes units, ICE Transportation Security, the Department of Agriculture, and local law enforcement in 9 states. The challenge wasn't just intercepting the shipment, but dismantling the entire network without alerting the coordinators that they'd been compromised. Surveillance teams tracked each container from the moment it left the Phoenix distribution facility. The containers moved by truck to a rail yard in Tucson, where they were loaded onto 3 different freight trains heading northeast. At each transfer point, additional surveillance units documented the process. Inspectors at intermediate yards were monitored to identify which ones allowed the containers to pass without proper examination. Financial tracking teams followed wire transfers in real time as payments moved through the shell company network. The simultaneous raids occurred on a Wednesday morning across 7 states. Teams hit distribution facilities in Phoenix, Dallas, and Miami at precisely 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Rail yards in Kansas City, Chicago, and Memphis were secured within minutes. Warehouse facilities in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey went down simultaneously. The coordination was precise. Within 90 minutes, federal agents had seized 89 tons of cocaine, arrested 47 individuals, and shut down a trafficking infrastructure that had operated undetected for at least 6 years. But the network's reach extended further than initial estimates suggested. As investigators analyzed seized computers and financial records, they discovered the rail operation was part of a larger transportation network. The same organizational structure that managed rail shipments also coordinated trucking routes along Interstate 10 and Interstate 40, connecting the border region with major cities across the southern United States. Container ships arriving at ports in Long Beach, California, and Houston, Texas, fed into the same distribution system. The financial architecture revealed even more complexity. The shell companies that received transport payments were connected to legitimate businesses that operated cash-intensive operations. Car washes, laundromats, restaurants, and parking facilities in 12 states served as money laundering fronts. The drug proceeds were converted into seemingly legitimate business revenue, then moved through the banking system as normal commercial activity. Over 4 years, the network had processed an estimated $3 billion in illicit proceeds. The cartel structure behind the operation represented a new evolution in trafficking methodology. Rather than controlling the entire supply chain from production to street distribution, these organizations focused on providing logistics infrastructure. They operated like Amazon for drug trafficking, offering reliable transport services, quality control, and customer support. Different cartels could contract for routes without maintaining their own infrastructure. The model reduced risk exposure while maximizing efficiency. The dismantling process took months. Federal prosecutors built cases against network coordinators, corrupt officials, and cartel representatives. Some defendants cooperated, providing information about additional routes and distribution networks. Others remained silent, accepting lengthy prison sentences rather than risk retaliation from cartel leadership. The legal proceedings revealed the operation's scope: over 700 shipments across 4 years, moving an estimated 400 tons of cocaine and methamphetamine into American cities. The corrupted officials represented a critical vulnerability. 9 freight inspectors, 3 customs officers, and 2 agricultural inspectors had accepted payments to facilitate shipments. Their involvement allowed the network to operate with minimal risk of interdiction. When those positions were compromised, the entire system collapsed. The cartels had invested years building those relationships, cultivating trust, and ensuring loyalty through escalating payments and subtle threats. The seized infrastructure represented a significant blow to multiple trafficking organizations. The rail routes had provided a reliable, high-volume pipeline that moved drugs from border regions to major markets with minimal loss. Alternative routes existed, but they were slower, riskier, and more expensive. The cartels would adapt, finding new methods and corrupting new officials, but the disruption created temporary shortages in several major cities. DEA analysts studying the network identified patterns that suggested similar operations might exist in other regions. The use of legitimate freight companies as cover, the cellular organizational structure, and the corruption of specific checkpoint personnel represented a playbook that could be replicated anywhere with sufficient rail infrastructure. Investigations expanded to examine freight operations in the Pacific Northwest, the Southeast Corridor, and routes connecting the southwest border with cities in the Mountain West. The lesson was clear. Trafficking organizations had moved beyond simple smuggling operations. They now operated sophisticated logistics networks that mimicked legitimate business practices, utilized modern technology, and corrupted infrastructure at strategic points. The scale of investment required indicated this wasn't opportunistic crime, but rather calculated business strategy. The cartels were thinking in terms of decades, not months, building systems designed to survive individual arrests and seizures. The rail network investigation revealed another troubling development. Younger coordinators within the organization had backgrounds in supply chain management, logistics, and business administration. They brought corporate methodology to trafficking operations, implementing quality control systems, customer relationship management, and performance metrics. The operation maintained spreadsheets tracking shipment success rates, customer satisfaction scores, and operational efficiency benchmarks. This professionalization made the networks harder to detect but also created new vulnerabilities. Corporate methods generated documentation. Digital communications left trails. Financial transactions created patterns that sophisticated analysis could detect. The same efficiency that made the network profitable also made it visible to investigators who knew what to look for. As federal agents dismantled the seized rail infrastructure, they found evidence of contingency planning. The coordinators had developed alternative routes that could be activated if primary pathways were compromised. Backup facilities existed in different states, ready to absorb shipments if main distribution centers went down. The network was designed with redundancy, expecting that law enforcement would eventually disrupt portions of the operation. The final accounting showed the operation had moved approximately $400 million in drugs through the rail network during its peak year of operation. The seizure of 89 tons represented roughly 20% of the network's annual volume, based on financial projections derived from seized records. The remaining 80% had already reached distribution networks in cities across the eastern United States, where it would be cut, packaged, and sold to consumers who had no awareness of the sophisticated infrastructure that delivered it. The individuals arrested represented multiple tiers of the organization. Low-level loading crews faced 5 to 10 years. Logistics coordinators faced 15 to 25 years. Cartel representatives faced life sentences. The corrupted officials faced federal charges that would end their careers and likely result in substantial prison time. Each arrest removed one component of the network, but the underlying demand that drove the operation remained unchanged. 3 months after the raids, intelligence reports indicated that trafficking organizations were already rebuilding logistics networks along different routes. New coordinators had been recruited. Different transportation companies were being evaluated for infiltration. The cartels had absorbed the loss and moved forward with characteristic adaptability. The rail network was gone, but the business model survived. The investigation demonstrated both the DEA's capability to dismantle sophisticated trafficking infrastructure and the fundamental challenge of sustained enforcement. Every network disrupted was eventually replaced by something similar. Every coordinator arrested was succeeded by someone else willing to take the risk for substantial profit. The economic incentives that drove the operation remained constant, generating an endless supply of participants willing to build new networks as old ones collapsed. The seized evidence filled 3 warehouses. Computers, financial records, shipping manifests, and communications logs were archived for ongoing investigations and future prosecutions. The cocaine itself was destroyed in a controlled incineration process supervised by federal agents. The containers, trucks, and facilities were seized as assets subject to civil forfeiture, their eventual sale proceeds designated for law enforcement operations. The rail network case became a training example for DEA agents studying modern trafficking methodology. It illustrated how organizations exploit legitimate commerce, corrupt specific vulnerabilities in inspection systems, and utilize corporate management practices to increase efficiency. The lessons informed new detection strategies and checkpoint protocols designed to identify similar operations before they reached full operational capacity. But for the communities affected by the drugs that had already moved through the network, the enforcement action came too late. The cocaine and methamphetamine seized in the raids represented only a fraction of what had been distributed over the previous 4 years. The remainder had fueled addiction, funded street violence, and contributed to the overdose crisis affecting cities across the nation. The rail cartel network was disrupted. The routes were cut. The infrastructure was dismantled. But the demand remained. And where demand exists, supply chains adapt. The aftermath revealed structural weaknesses in freight transportation oversight that cartels had exploited systematically. Inspection protocols at rail yards focused primarily on hazardous materials and agricultural contamination, not narcotics. The volume of daily freight made comprehensive inspection impossible. The cartels designed their network around this limitation. They selected routes through rail yards with highest traffic volume and lowest inspection rates. The containers moved during peak periods when inspectors were overwhelmed with legitimate cargo requiring rapid processing. The organizational learning within trafficking networks proved concerning. When earlier operations were disrupted in 2019, cartels adapted their methods rather than abandoning rail infrastructure. They implemented stronger compartmentalization, improved digital security, and developed more sophisticated corruption recruitment strategies. The human cost extended beyond drug-related deaths. Freight company employees who unknowingly participated faced unemployment when assets were seized. Drivers, dispatchers, and administrative staff lost their jobs despite having no knowledge of criminal activity. The corrupted officials represented another dimension of the operation's impact. Many had started with small compromises, accepting minor payments to expedite specific shipments without asking questions. Over time, the payments increased and the complicity deepened until they were fully embedded in the trafficking infrastructure. Some cooperated with investigators, while others maintained silence, accepting prison sentences rather than risk their family's safety. Intelligence analysts studying the operation's financial records identified connections to legitimate businesses that received investment from the network's shell companies. real estate purchases, restaurant franchises, and small manufacturing operations had been partially funded with drug proceeds. Untangling these connections required coordinating with state and federal financial crimes units, creating investigations that would continue for years beyond the initial raids. The international dimensions of the network extended the investigation's scope significantly. The cocaine originated from Colombia, was transported through Central America and Mexico, crossed the border in Arizona, and dispersed through the rail network to markets across the eastern United States. Each segment involved different criminal organizations operating with varying degrees of cooperation and competition. Mexican cartels managed border-crossing operations and coordinated with the rail network coordinators. The logistics operators functioned as neutral service providers, working with multiple cartels without exclusive allegiances. This made the network resilient, but also created tension between competing organizations seeking priority access to reliable routes. The methamphetamine component followed different supply chains but utilized the same rail infrastructure. Mexican labs produced synthetic drugs using precursor chemicals imported from China. The finished product moved to the same Arizona distribution facilities that handled cocaine shipments, with both drugs often mixed in the same containers to maximize efficiency. The investigation's technical aspects demonstrated how trafficking organizations had embraced modern technology. The coordinators used commercial encryption software, communicated through virtual private networks, and managed operations with sophisticated logistics software that rivaled legitimate shipping companies. They monitored law enforcement radio frequencies and adjusted operations in real time based on observed enforcement activity. Federal agents brought in specialists from the FBI's cyber division to break encrypted communications. The legal complexities of digital surveillance added delays that the cartels didn't face when implementing their security measures. The education level of coordinators within the network challenged traditional assumptions. Several had college degrees in business, logistics, or supply chain management. They brought professional expertise to illegal enterprise, applying legitimate business methodologies to criminal operations. Training programs developed in response to the investigation focused on teaching agents to recognize subtle indicators of trafficking infrastructure embedded within legitimate freight operations. Financial anomalies, unusual routing patterns, and inconsistent documentation became red flags triggering deeper investigation. Community impact assessments revealed how thoroughly the drugs had penetrated markets across 9 states. The network had supplied distribution organizations in Philadelphia, Cleveland, Chicago, and smaller cities throughout the Midwest and Northeast. Street-level dealers rarely knew where their supply originated. They simply knew it was reliable, pure, and consistently available. The consistency was key to the network's success. Distributors who could guarantee steady supply built larger customer bases. The rail network provided that reliability for years, creating dependency relationships that would take time to rebuild through alternative supply chains. The DEA agents who worked the case understood this reality. Their job wasn't to end drug trafficking, but to disrupt networks, increase operational costs, and temporarily reduce drug availability. Each successful operation saved lives by keeping drugs off the street. The rail network investigation represented tactical success within a strategic stalemate. The network was broken. Major quantities were seized. Criminals faced justice. But the underlying demand remained unchanged, ensuring new networks would emerge.